get the one in terms of the green light. And you're doing anything.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming to this special meeting on November 10th. I want to welcome you, and if you haven't already and would like to be part of our mailing list and become more involved with the neighborhood council system, please sign up on our mailing list. We're going to discuss items listed on the agenda, and copies of the agenda. Everything's in the back, I'm assuming, Gracie, right? Yeah, copies of the agenda are in the back. Should a board member have a conflict of interest, the board member will identify the general nature of the conflict, indicate that he or she is recusing himself. What do you say? No, the black card. Then they'll recuse himself from participating and leave the room. Before we make a decision on any item, the public is provided with the opportunity to provide its comment on the item that we are considering. If you have a general comment on an item, then you may provide us with your comment during, well, we're actually not going to have public comment today because it's a special meeting. Please fill out a speaker card if you want to be heard today. You will be called by me when it's your turn to speak. Please be sure to place the number of the item. Please be sure to place the number of the item you wish to speak about on the card. Copies of speaker cards are located on the table in the back as well. Please hand the speaker card to General Manager Lou, who's seated at the end there to my left. When a person is speaking, they are entitled to courtesy and respect. Please refrain from any other discussion in the room. If you wish to chat, then please take that discussion outside while the meeting is in session. We treat one another with respect. That means we act with civility and decorum. Competing viewpoints may be articulated without the need for inappropriate or uncivil actions. Last but not least, please switch your cell phone ringers to vibrators on. Thank you. So we have one item on the agenda today, and the big topic is staffing in the department, which we are, the department is really suffering under city rules that limit the number of exempt positions available from throughout the city. Because the department is pretty dependent on exempt positions, they are suffering. So we have a question before us, to me, and commissioners, if you have other ideas, but really it's how can we be most effective in supporting the department and getting the staff they need to fulfill their goals. And so what I thought we'd do to start off with, we have three key voices here to help us in considering the issue. Deputy Mayor Rick Cole has just come, which I'm so appreciative that he stopped by to talk about this issue. And then I'm hoping that Jay Handel will come and speak. I think he submitted a speaker card to talk about what the budget advocates are doing. And Gracie, of course, we want to hear your perspective. So, because I know the tightness of your schedule, Deputy Mayor Cole, would you just come and talk to us about the issue from your perspective? And again, thank you so much for being here.
Well, we're here to serve, so thank you, President. And thank you to the commissioners, and thank you to our outstanding Director of the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. Let me set the stage a little bit, and I apologize if this sounds defensive. It's meant to be analytical and not critical of anyone or anything, but just to give you an understanding that I deal with 35 departments in the budget process. I guarantee you that each and every one of them feels that they've been the ones that have been hit the worst by our budget crush. People say, well, look at the police, they have, they get everything they want. And then you go to the police department and they say, we are having to call people back and send them home because we don't have enough overtime hours. So there's this citywide challenge of the aftermath of a really huge crisis fiscal crisis that hit the city 5 years ago. And another important thing to keep in mind is people think, well, that was then, that was 5 years ago, right? And now we should, the economy's getting better, people are getting work, revenue's going up. Shouldn't we be past a lot of these problems? One of the ways in which the city avoided potential for bankruptcy was it pushed some of our responsibilities into future years. Couldn't pay for them then, so pay for them when things are better. Well, now things are better, now we're paying for them. So the things that we would like to be doing with that money today are still being used to offset some of the decisions that had to be made 3, 4, 5 years ago. So that's the larger context. So I serve somewhat reluctantly, but I found it a very valuable role. I'm one of the 3 members of the hiring committee. So I serve with a representative of the city administrative officer and the chief legislative analyst. By the way, essentially again, all 35 departments, some of the proprietary are executive managed hiring, but even specially funded operations and departments are subject to managed hiring. So that's nearly 30 departments are subject to that regime. And I also serve on behalf of the mayor overseeing support services departments. I do not oversee the Department of Economic Power, just to be clear, but I have under my portfolio personnel. So personnel managed hiring are 2 of the key players in the situation, the Department of Finance. So let me separate the 2 issues quickly and move quickly to the background and then where we are now and then where we go from here. So on the budget side, the way in which the city balances its budget is it assumes that we are going to have attrition. People are going to quit. People are going to retire. People are going to get promotions. People are going to want to go work at the airport or DWP. So in any healthy organization, there's going to be some turnover, some change in the course of the year. The city captures that and uses it to save money. We count on the fact that there will be vacancies that we don't have at the beginning of the year that will crop up a day in, a week in, a month in, 6 months in. And we count on what essentially is kind of like if you didn't have money in the bank today, but you wrote a check because you knew you're getting paid Wednesday and you don't think they're going to cash the check until Thursday. They call that the float, right? So we operate on the float. We count on the fact that if no one quit, got promoted, or retired at the beginning of the year, we would not have a balanced budget. So we count on the fact that a certain number of days will be empty in which no one's getting paid for lots of positions in the city. That there will be vacancies that are not there on July 1st, but that are going to. Now this is normal for budgeting. All cities do this, but most cities do it on the basis of they'll try and hire someone as soon as possible, and they'll often even use the savings in between maybe to have someone fill in. We actually use this as a budgeting tool. We want vacancies to occur because if we didn't have vacancies, we'd overrun our budget. So we have more authorized positions than we have money to pay for at the beginning of the year. This is something that I don't think everyone totally, I know there are members of the council who told me that they did not realize that. They sort of thought, that's an authorized position. We must have money in the budget because we just passed the budget and that was an authorized position. We probably authorized 93% of positions. And we assume that in the course of the year we're going to have that kind of turnover and that those jobs are going to stay vacant for the rest of the year or for 3 or 4 months or even for a few weeks. That's the background. Hence, managed hiring. So you think, well, let's say you have a department of 20 authorized positions, and you start the year with 18. Well, you figure on July 2nd, you should be able to hire 2 more, right? Well, in fact, we might have budgeted for only 17. You have to wait for the 17th to leave before you can hire that person's, and you can't hire that person's replacement. Right? So you have to, then when you get down to 17, then when you lose another one, then you might need to be able to fill a job. So that's why managed hiring is there. And one thing that State Administration has done, working with our colleagues, the CAO and the CLA, is rather than do it on a case-by-case basis, it's literally going out here and join the committee. Every single job, we have 30,000 people who work in the general fund, right? And so, with the exception of police officers, so 20,000 jobs, we were literally going through them one at a time. So, made for long meetings and a thick agenda. So, with help from, great help from the CAO and the CLA, we now have blanket exemptions where you have to present a plan that says, okay, I've got 20 authorized positions. I have 17 now. I have 18 now. I can only pay for 17. Here are the jobs that I'm going to fill. And here are the jobs I'm going to leave vacant to generate the savings I need to come in at the end of the year. And then if you keep to that plan, then we are not going to micromanage each and every one of the jobs you fill during the course of the year. But you have to keep your commitment on the other side, keep some jobs vacant indefinitely, which of course frustrates commissions, council, the public. They think, well, wait a minute, there's supposed to be 20 people working there, and you've frozen some of those positions. Who's doing their work? And the answer is kind of crickets. There's really no answer. We just do the best we can with the money we have. So that's a part of the problem that all the departments suffer from. Is that they have to keep some level of vacancies throughout the year. The second challenge is, okay, so you get a blanket exemption. And we say, okay, in fact, you've got a green light to fill these jobs. Managed hiring has given you a green light. Go ahead and fill it. We have a civil service system. It's in the city charter. It's quite detailed and quite specific. And if we don't follow the rules, we get sued and we lose. So we have to follow those rules very carefully. The civil service rules in the charter mandate that every position has to have a job description and every position has to have an examination so that we can test people to decide who gets those jobs. So it isn't my cousin Randy or my friend who I used to work with in the last city I worked in. It's meant to be as blind and as impartial and as fair as possible. So the city stopped hiring. We have 1,500 positions in the city, approximately 1,500. So each one of them has to have a job description. Each one of them has to have a valid test. And that test has to be fair. It not only has to be reasonably correlated with the actual job duties, but we have to make sure that it doesn't discriminate against one protected class. So we take that all very seriously. So here's the problem. With 1,500 jobs, with nobody getting hired basically for 5 or 6 years besides police officers, we now have people wanting to hire people. We now suddenly need 100 plan members because we've got all these cases and lots of permits and they're paying their fees and they can't get anyone to do the work. And so personnel goes, or planning goes over to personnel and says, hey, we need to hire people. They say, well, let's dust off the job description. Okay, this hasn't been reviewed since 1989, right? It's 2014. We gotta redo the job description because the world has changed. By the way, the test we gave was designed in 1992, and there's some new legal requirements we have to deal with. The job description has changed somewhat. Now you no longer have to type 40 words a minute. Now you have to know Microsoft Word. And so they've got to redo the test. So it takes for the process from when the Board of Commissioners, when you submit a request to when you can fill the job with a list of people from which you can select. That is taking approximately 182 days. So that's 6 months. Is that right? Yeah, 6 months. However, because we have 135 backlogged, it takes 200 days for them to open a file. Right? So in 6 months, we can start a process that takes 6 months. So it takes over a year if the job description is new. If we don't currently have an eligible list of roles. The last time we hired for that was 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 7 years ago. We would not have a list. We would not have a group of people who've taken the test and we're ready to go to work. So we have to start over from scratch. And we have to wait 6 months before we can even get to opening the file. So there are workarounds. This is the city of Los Angeles, and things need to be done. And so people jump up and down, and if you have a council office or you're the mayor's office or whatever, you say, I can't wait a year. I can't. I gotta get streets paved. I gotta get trees trimmed. I cannot wait. So then you have to go to the personnel department and say, put hours ahead of everybody else, which pushes everybody back further, right? So it was 6 months when you started, but now we've got someone who was at the back of the line, the front of the line. So someone who's partway through, thinking that they're almost done, now they get pushed back because somebody else has jumped over them. So we say, well, that's fine. We've got exemptions. The mayor has authority from the council. The council can rescind the authority, but the mayor can grant exemptions. The mayor has 44,000 people work in the city, 30,000 in the general fund. We have 150 exemptions. Well, in any given moment, we have like 149 filled. Right? So, the Department of Neighborhood Environment says, well, problem solved, right? We'll just bypass the civil services line and find 5 great people right away. Just give them an exemption. Well, we don't have 5 exemptions to give away because every other department is jumping up and down with the exact same problem. And the unions look over our shoulder, and the council looks over our shoulder and says, what are you giving all these exemptions out for? Why don't you go through the system? You know, the system is designed to prevent fraud and abuse and nepotism and all that stuff, and now you're trying to sneak around us with these exemptions. No. So even if we had, and we've asked the council, and the council's considering on Wednesday expanding the exemptions by 50, even if we have, council's very reluctant, understandably, to just hand them out like candy. Because we have a civil service system, we should stick with the civil service system, even though the civil service system is now under enormous stress and is backlogged. Because we have 30% fewer people working in the personnel department than before the economic crisis. So this is how these things sort of cascade one on top of the other. So there's another workaround. It's called an emergency one, where we basically say, look, we know we got people coming through the system, so we don't have to make this exempt for them. But let's just make it exempt for, I think it's 6 months. That's the 6 months, is hopefully we get the test up and running and boom. Well, let's say everything worked well. The year got shrunk to 6 months. The year to wait to open the file, and then 6 months to actually process the file. Let's say we could jam all that through in 6 months, which means again, if they jump this one ahead of all the other bar and all the screen. Even if that worked, then the people that Gracie's brought in have to actually fill out the test. Right? If they don't, then she's got to get rid of them and start with a whole new problem. Now, hopefully they're as well qualified or even better qualified because they did well on the test. But in fact, they'll be walking in the door brand new. And she'll have to sort of start all over again. So that's not ideal either. So that's the situation. I apologize for giving you kind of a textbook 101 on our situation. But very few people sort of understand all the pieces. And so what they say is, oh, it's managed hiring, those bastards. Excuse me. They do say that, but they shouldn't say it in front of a microphone. Being one of those, understandably, I've developed a pretty thick skin because I would love to get rid of managed hiring tomorrow, but until we close our budget structural gap, we just it's a patch that we need to keep the tire rolling until we get a new tire. So we've worked with Gracie to figure out the right workaround, whether it's help with personnel, whether it's proceed cautiously and bring people on board and make sure, a lot of success in Los Angeles I've found in the last 16 months. Not that I've had a lot of success, but I've watched other people who've had success. It's kind of like three-legged sack race. It's so you come along with the city attorney and the CLA and you kind of lurch forward and make progress. That's the position we're in now, as we're lurching forward. We're highly sensitive to the needs of the Department of Labor and Power, because it's a teeny department. Right? A few people make all the difference in the world. But in this bigger system, it's not because anyone is not aware of the problem and not wanting to solve it. It's everybody's trying to do their job and make sure that we do it right. And the result is we're sort of stuck. Not permanently, but we're still working our way through trying to fill these critical vacancies as soon as possible. At the same time, we're listening to about 30 other departments their needs as well. So I hope that didn't sound too defensive. I hope that was factual and informative.
Commissioner Atkinson and Commissioner Medina.
You know, I believe so much.
I can hear you.
Anyway, I believe very much in this performance-based budgeting that we've always talked about. But my issue is some of the most critical positions that are missing are the folks that would help with the performance-based budgeting. It seems to me that we ought to get a pass on this performance-based budgeting this first year, that we're trying to put it into positions, because the very people, it's a crisis here at the department, because the vacancies are the very people that work with the 95 neighborhood councils.
Yep.
And so you can say, well, we're looking and we're going to work with Gracie and we're going to, try to, but there's no time limit. It takes 6 months or it takes a year, but the time frame that you mentioned earlier. And it just seems to me that there must be some kind of emergency waiver thing that happens somewhere along the budget where you say, well, this department is in crisis, and at least out of 6 we could compromise on 3 or 4 or something. It just, and I understand you have to follow a process, and I understand the process, but it just, and there might be many other departments that say the same thing, but there needs to have been a verbalized commitment that the neighborhood council movement is an important movement. And if it's an important movement, then we need to get help from somewhere. And it just seems to me that there ought to be able to be a compromise on filling some of these vacancies as soon as possible in order to get the department has some great ideas on outreach and on improving neighborhood councils and getting their treasuries together and getting their reports together. There's a lot of good stuff going on, but it can't be carried out administratively if you don't have people to help. If you don't have people to help with the 95 neighborhood councils, and I can see something in the future. I can see somebody in the city council or somebody in the budget and the CEO law say, well, they're not performing, maybe we don't even need the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. That's what I see if we don't fight for what we need to try to help this department a little bit, to at least say something emergency-wise that we can do to help bring on some staff people. I mean, the very people we need, analysts and NEAs and project coordinators to handle grievances. Gosh, we have a lot of grievances. It just seems that there has to be some kind of, some kind of compromise on reaching this issue and us discussing with somebody how to get that done. And that's just my opinion. I'm very frustrated. I understand the process, and I've been on too many commissions before, so I know that the process is very bureaucratic, and it does take time, and people mean well, but it just seems that at some point in time we have to say this is an emergency. And it's not, police and fire have emergencies, but this is an emergency because I think neighborhood councils could be, if we help them perform correctly, could be the heart and soul of the city as far as civic engagement is concerned. But unless we can help them, and you only can help them with a sufficient number of staff people, we can even probably do it with not a sufficient number, but we can't do it in a crisis situation.
You're absolutely right. I don't think anyone in the administration would disagree with you.
Right.
said, you're absolutely right. I don't think there's anyone in the administration who would disagree with you. The only problem is we've got, this isn't the only one, right? I mean, I could almost word for word just erase Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and put in the Information Technology Agency and our network. We used to have 22 people there. We now have 11. And some of them are now working on the coordinated effort with the Sheriff's Department, with the county. So every single day, the network is in danger. The network that provides all the internet and 911 access to the city, right? It's basic backbone. It's like the phone line, except it's the phone line of all our computers. Not just somebody's computer on a desk, but the computers that run the 911 system. And both the fire and police 911 systems have gone down this year. And then we have to switch everything over. And we've actually had times when we were out of business on the 911 system because we've only got 11 people in operation. So you're absolutely right about the crisis and the emergency. It's just, you're not alone. And not to pick on anybody, but we just got an emergency letter from the attorney's office saying because the voters in their wisdom passed Proposition 47, we immediately need 6 prosecutors.
Just one more thing. Today we're discussing like what approach to take with regards to the issue and our agendas that we can look at the things we can look at doing a letter to the CAO, or we can look at some of us dividing up and going and seeing elected officials, or having an ad hoc committee to look at the issue and report back. We're looking at alternatives. And just in your experience, what do you think would be an alternative for us to at least try to make some kind of inroads? Should we divide it into 3 commissioners and visit our local city council people? Should we do the letter? Would you have a suggestion on us making any kind of inroads into trying to solve the situation, or is it just a done deal?
All I can tell you is that the solution to this problem involves robbing Peter to pay Paul. So Peter's really important. I'm sorry, Paul's really important. So if we want to rob Peter, we can give Paul some help. But you've had the same thing happen to you. Right? Other people have gotten ahead of you, right? Because they have their own crises and they've gotten people's attention. So it's a kind of a triage. We have a lot of these emergencies happening at the same time, all the time. We can fix this problem, but at the cost of breaking something else. That's just there's only enough resources and time to work.
Commissioner Medina, first of all, let me thank you for coming in, providing us with the good information that you provided previously. But we're still here, and the question by Commissioner Atkinson was asked, what do you recommend? I don't think we got an answer as far as what should we do as of today. I understand the process. I understand there's people ahead of us. But this department, if we don't take action, it's going to go down. And it is, we have pretty much customers that we need pretty much to serve. And this is not happening as of last week. We got paperwork that needs to come in. Somebody need to look into it. And it's not happening. We got 95 different councils out there that they're submitting paperwork. Pretty much we passed recently a policy pretty much, and that hasn't been pretty much taken care of because of a lack of people, staffing. So my thing is we risk, every day we're getting stuff that needs to be done, and by not having active people in there, we're failing the system. We're not serving the community out there the way we need to serve. And I think pretty much that goes into the whole pretty much vision for LA to do. We're serving the people out there. And right now, we're not complying with that vision and mission. We failed to do that. And if the mayor, we don't take any action, we're going to lose this. This neighborhood will go pretty much down because there's no action. So my question is, again, what can you help us as of today? What can we do? This department needs help right away. And that's why we're here today. I appreciate what you said earlier. I understand the process, but this is an emergency. And you said there's other departments that have an emergency, but again, I don't think the emergency is as big as it is with this department. That is my point of view looking at it, and I think everybody here agrees on that. So.
Thanks for coming. One thing I think that weighs,
Do you want to respond to Commissioner? Do you have a response or should we?
The reality is that this is not the only emergency. This is a real emergency. There are other real emergencies. They are real. And if people call 911 and nobody answers, that's an emergency, right? And so we might have an operator at 911, but if the network goes down, we have that problem. We have to close this larger gap. We are trying to do more things than we can afford to do. We're promising more things than we can afford to pay for. So that you're seeing in this little department, you're seeing a microcosm of the challenges facing the entire city. This is what the city is facing, and I agree with you. Neighborhood councils are part of the solution. My best advice, Tracy, you may have a different one, but I think the most important piece would be to have help from the chief legislative analyst. You don't want to throw anyone under the bus. They are not the problem here. They are the ones who potentially could help us get past some of the concerns they have, that they're trying to protect, that we don't find ourselves further getting ourselves into a hole on emergency appointments. That they are very concerned about that problem, because that's a problem where we solve a problem today and we create a bigger problem 6 months from now. And then in 6 months people say, well, what were you thinking back then? You could see this coming, why didn't you do that? So I would think dialogue with the chief legislative analyst would be very valuable, because their concern, quite rightly, and I share it, is we've got these emergency appointments, and that solves today's emergency, but it creates an even bigger problem down the road. So maybe they have some ideas about how we can all work together to fix that.
Again, you just restated that there is an emergency in other departments. Let me ask you this. Is there a savings in other departments as this department has the savings as far as for hiring personnel as other departments? Is it the same savings or other departments within? They have an emergency. You said other people have an emergency as well. Do they have the type of savings that this department has?
Some do and some don't, right? It varies with the size of the department and their particular situation. But yes, there are other departments equally as short-staffed as this one.
So it is clear that we're not talking about the money. We're just talking about the time frames to hiring and also, not being able to hire.
No, the reason we're talking about money is because the time it takes to hire under the normal process is reduced by the number of people we have over the personnel. That's one of the departments that's equally understaffed, right? The department that could hire the people you need is in the same boat with this department. If they don't have enough people to process, and you say, well, then give them money. Well, so then we got to give them money, and that's got to come from somewhere else. So it's a shell game, right? So we have been able to, and I've only been here 16 months, but I'm going to own this because the people 5 years ago, they had to keep the city out of bankruptcy. They had to do that. They had to make choices. So what they did was they locked 30% off of technology. They locked 30% off of personnel. They locked 50% off of cultural affairs. They locked 50% off of Department of Neighborhood Power. They just did that. They did that because otherwise we would be talking to a judge like Detroit. So they said, okay. And now we're still trying to run a city with a third less people or a half less people or 10% less people. We're still trying to run the city pretty much the same old way because we don't have enough people to actually fix the way we do things, right? With technology and with other things, we could do more with fewer people than we do now. But we need people to actually change those things, or we need to buy that technology. That's the situation we find ourselves in. So if you're frustrated, I share your frustration. If you're frustrated, I understand your frustration. If you're frustrated, I want to help you. But that is what we deal with on a daily basis across all the departments in the city. It's not Now, do we waste money out of an $8 billion budget? Is there somewhere that you would point out in an $8 billion budget where you say, what the heck are we spending money on over there? Yes, in an $8 billion budget, there's probably enough money to come and fix this problem. But that problem, whatever that is that someone doesn't like, that probably has, it's been around for 50 years, or it's got, a whole constituency behind it, or somebody's going to come out and yell and scream if we try to touch it. But from the standpoint of the way the whole city works, there is not enough money to get us out of the crisis mode we're currently operating in. Currently, so what we're doing is we're trying to, one bite at a time, is bite this elephant down. And it just got harder last week. Last week, the group of people just like you, appointed volunteers, hard for the city, want to do the right thing. Their job is to fight for the pension system. And they said, we've got to reduce our optimistic expectations about how much money our investments are going to earn. $50 million. Like that. That doesn't buy any staff in the city attorney's office. It doesn't buy any staff in the police department. It doesn't buy any staff in the Department of Neighborhood Government. That's money to just the exact same staff we have next year. It's going to cost us $50 million just because they changed the percentage point by a quarter percentage. $50 million out the window. In the long run, is that a good decision? Absolutely. In the short run, it's crazy. I don't know where we're going to get the money.
So I promised you you'd be out here in 15 minutes. I want to do a time check. Do you have time to answer a few more questions, or?
A couple more.
Okay. So Commissioner Shea.
And my time is yours. I hadn't planned on this for today. That's all.
Yeah, well, and that's why I doubly appreciate your making time to come and talk to us.
Again, thank you for coming. I think what Commissioner Medina was looking at is that should the department be given some preferential treatment based on the fact that they put away nearly $500,000. They squirreled that away from last year's budget by scrimping and saving. And so they have the money to actually pay for people. When you get a chance, I'm really curious as to what the bigger problem is down the line after an emergency appointment. There's got to be some reason that the CLE is really reluctant to look at that type of thing. But thank you again for pointing out where we might best use our resources, and any other pointers you might give out would be appreciated. I'm getting the idea that with all the various departments that do have problems, that we should pick and choose very, very carefully as to what it is we might want to help the department with as far as what assets they should really try and go after. And if I'm wrong, please let me know.
You're absolutely right.
Okay, we won't use a shotgun approach. And that's about where we are, because I think much of it's been said. There's a couple of positions that obviously we want to talk to Gracie about that are going to be basically linchpins in certain processes that we want to see happen in the city. And those are perhaps the ones we have to look after. Maybe this commission has to take a look at some of its recent policy that it's put out, and maybe modify it for a short time or something like that to help ease the problem with the department. I don't know, that's something we could actually look at and consider. If there's anything else that you can think of that would guide us in where we should expend our energies, that would be very much appreciated.
Well, I apologize if this sounds sanctimonious. It's not meant that way, but I think the most important challenge is to solve this larger mismatch in the city between our appetite and our revenues. Some people say, well, let's just go get it out of banks, right? And I've looked at that, and there isn't. It turns out that there's not near as much money as is portrayed. On Other people say, well, just cut the fat and wasted fraud, and then definitions of what fat and wasted fraud vary dramatically between people. So I think in a serious way, I think the work of the budget advocates is really critically important in two ways. One, in educating the public about the realities of our fiscal situation, and two, in bringing to bear the public versus developers or unions or lawyers or this neighborhood or that, but the public at large, the common good of the city. Not to say anything bad about anyone else who advocates for their own particular concern. Like there are people who love libraries and that's all they care about, and they hammer and they say, they've been successful in the city. We actually can't cut the library budget. Not that it hasn't been tried, and not that there isn't sometimes ways underhandedly that can happen. But people look out for one interest, whether it's libraries or parks or salaries or whatever. And the neighborhood associations in the city, if they look out for the whole, you really are. If you represent the 4 million people, not all of them are members of the neighborhood, not all of them are active, not all of them vote, but you represent that great mass of 4 million people. And so I think if we can get you to staff, and we're determined to try to do that, then we need to reach out to the voters of the city and have them help us get to a place where we're not allowing Peter to pay Paul. That's a terrible way to run a
Commissioner Grant, and then I feel like we should probably let you go.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you so much for being here. Commissioner Grant, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to ask for this to be addressed. And one of the reasons why is because, like you said, we do represent the masses of the people. And it's important as part of our job description as neighborhood council leaders to make sure that we're doing what is required, and things like that are making sure that the voice of the public is heard here at City Hall, and to make sure that we help to facilitate city services. And so, while I think that every department in the city is important, and there's a lot of critical issues, I understand. I've been doing this for a very long time. I've been involved in the city and neighborhood council for over 10 years. But the reality is this is one of the departments that's doing the work of other departments too. And it is helping streamline some of those activities for those other departments. For example, as you know, with the pothole issue, for them to be able to notify neighbor council, say what are the worst ones, it streamlines them having to do that investigation. It's also used by the mayor's office for outreach. It's used by the other departments for outreach. It's the one place in the city that you can go and talk to 20 people or 100 people on a program that you're trying to promote. And as do the other departments take advantage of this. So this is not just a department that's siloed. This is a department that actually is the foundation of getting word out for every department in the community. And if this department becomes unfunctional to support the neighborhood councils, as down will go the other departments too. So I do see the criticalness of dealing with this. I also feel as a commissioner, our hands are starting to be tied when we create a policy that keeps the neighborhood councils within the rules that they're supposed to be following, such as the new posting policy, that we have a posting policy so that you could go online and find out where is there a meeting I could show up at tonight, and that ability is not there any longer because the department is so burdened with being able to get that information out. It not only disrupts our ability to do that policy, but the department's ability to enforce that. So that's the kind of critical situation we're already facing, and it's going to continue to get worse unless we do something to fix it. Now, I know you don't want a Band-Aid fix, and neither do we. We want to treat the cancer, and I'm happy to help do that from every angle. But the fact is, you also need those army of neighborhood council peoples to help fix that cancer. And I think that it would be doing a huge disservice to the city not to see this as a priority. I just wanted to get my opinion across. I thank you. I'm always available if you want me to help work with you. I'm happy to do that. We just needed to get a stand so that we can move forward in trying to do what the communities are asking us to do through their complaints.
Well said, all of you. I hear you. My sympathies are with you in pointing out the other challenges. I'm not trying to diminish. I hear the same thing, and it's valid. It's just as valid, and we are doing our best, working with council, the CLA, the CIO, to fix this particular problem.
Thank you so much for coming today, and we look forward to working with you to fix the problem.
All right, thank you, and thank you for, I'm highly conscious that you are all volunteers. You're not here because you want more money for your department. You're not here because you want more money for a raise in pay. You're not here because it looks good on your resume. You're here because you care deeply about the city of Los Angeles. So thank you for your service.
So it feels like it might make sense, Gracie, for you to talk to us a little bit, sort of building on what General Manager Deputy Mayor Cole said, to just, help us get another layer onto our understanding of the issue.
Sure. Gracie Liu, General Manager for the Department of Empowerment. I did provide you a handout that kind of lays out more clearly exactly the situation with the department. As you can see, some of the authorities that we have, and I'll just go down this list. In terms of funds, we do have enough funding to pay for all this. There is, as Deputy Mayor Cole mentioned, there is a kind of expected salary savings, and so we are working with that. I think the fact that we have these vacancies and that we likely will have these vacancies through the end of this calendar year, that we probably will need those savings just through these vacancies for this time period alone. So if you go down to number 7, the management analyst for the field, that was one of the unfunded positions that we received. It was a converted NEA position. It's vacant. We can hire now. We actually got the authority to hire earlier in July, but what we were trying to do was to see if we can use that as a starting point to convert all of the NEAs to a more universal class in the city, and it has not worked out, so we are going to actually proceed to just fill that as a management analyst, probably a transfer.
How long do you think that's going to take?
I am hoping by January at this point, with the holidays coming up and everything. There's certain rules you need to follow in terms of filling. You have to start with certain lists, transfer lists, and then the actual certified lists. And so there's process through all that. As you can see, between the 8 through 11, they're filled, though there are certain work restrictions. Our NEA is resigning on 11/14. We are looking at that position. As Deputy Mayor Cole pointed out, it actually has no certified list. There is no test for it. So in order for us to actually put that into place, it likely will take 6 months to a year to fill that. So rather than do that, we are again looking to try to make that into an existing civil service class so that we can fill it faster. Either that or exempt position, but as you heard, the exempt position is probably not likely. So that we can try to fill that hopefully by January, February. Number 16, the project assistant, my apologies, there's an area that she's actually working with the funding department. It's filled, however, as Deputy Mayor Cole mentioned, she was actually filled under emergency appointment that we were unaware of when we worked with the personnel department on this. So it wasn't, so basically emergency appointment, you have them for a year. And during that year, you're supposed to get the exemption for that position so they can stay on in that position. Because we were unaware that she was actually put in that manner, there was no exemption that was requested of her for her position. So we didn't find out until basically the appointment was about to expire. So we actually have to try to find a position to change her into, likely a civil service position that is equal to her, which she's currently making. So our CAO analyst is helping us with that. And we're hoping that we'll be able to do that by the end of this calendar year.
Who is that? So that person, I'm just trying to figure out who
she's actually funding.
Oh, she's funding, yes.
On 22, the vacancy for the senior project coordinator, that was Joe Howard's position, and we have the authority to hire at this moment because of the exemption situation. The systems analyst too was an unfunded position. It's vacant. We have no authority to hire. We were actually considering keeping that as vacant. However, it might now come into play if we're not able to get those exempt positions, that we will try to see if we can try to fill the systems analyst instead, to try to bring folks on in that manner. They're going through the process of administering that test. So we've been weighing in on the qualifications for that position in order to maximize the ability to find people that we may need, because that position could easily assist us with all the outreach, performance metrics, tracking that we have to do anyway. So that we were trying to do it under exempt positions. You can see the resolution authorities. Those are the 3 unfunded positions that are currently vacant, and we are just on hold with that. I think we'll find out more what happens with the city council and the additional exemptions that they're looking at. If not, the plan was to do emergency appointments into these positions in order to get people in there as soon as possible. But you know, if CLA has concerns, then likely we won't be able to move forward with that. And then you see we brought on various as-needed staff. These numbers change actually, depending on how many folks that I can get in. The as-needed staff, I still actually have to go through managed hiring to get those positions approved in order to bring on folks in that capacity. And then the temporary staff is literally the Apple One staff, so we likely will try to bring on one Apple One staff. But with as-needed staff and temporary staff, it's obviously not ideal, because we do find very talented people. You know, their talents are typically recognized by other agencies that have full-time positions for them to go into, and we've had a couple of them that have been really fantastic. Unfortunately, have to go other places because they've been offered permanent positions in other agencies. So we lose those folks, and you know, we lose. It just takes a long time to train a person. You know, easily 6 months to a year just to teach them about the other council system and how everything works. And so when we lose these people, it's hard, obviously, on existing staff to have to try to retrain more folks. So that's in a nutshell. And as Deputy Mayor Coles said, I am trying to work with CEO's office and his office and CLA to try to basically get just a plan. Like, if I can't get this, then can I get it this way? If I can't do that, can I do it this way? So it is about trying to find as many workarounds in this current system.
So, thinking about the positions that were, the resolution authority, that's what was approved when the budget was approved last year?
Yes, it came in after the city council members, basically thanks to the budget advocates and the neighborhood councils rallying for us. They came back after and added those the resolution authorities in. They came in unfunded, but as I said, we do have the salary savings that would be able to support these positions.
To me, this is a less. As I've been thinking about it, it's really, the policy is not implemented until the policy is implemented. So we really have to, it's not just about advocacy for getting the votes. It's like, okay, so now how are we actually going to implement this? Any other questions? Commissioner Medina and Commissioner Green.
Commissioner Medina, General Manager, I just want to let you know we all stand with you. We are all here to help and support you. But in reality, listening to a lot of this information previously discussed earlier, things said earlier. Let's just be realistic. Let's just, do you see this issue being resolved? Which honestly, I do not, but I mean, I just want to hear your opinion.
First of all, thank you so much for having this meeting. I do want to reiterate that I appreciate the support that the commission is providing, not only the department, but obviously to the neighborhood councils. You know, I'm just the kind of person, like, I roll with the punches. If I can't do it this way, I'm going to try to do it another way, and I'll just keep trying. So that means that if I can't get position authorities that I need, then I'm going to hire temp staff, even though I kind of get in trouble for stuff like that. But that's how I see that. That's my job in terms of making sure that I can sustain, you know, a minimum of services to the neighborhood councils. I honestly, I can't say one way or the other how these positions, in terms, given the situation that Deputy Mayor Cole mentioned, I don't know how things will play out. I think maybe we might get 1, 2, maybe 3 of the positions, but that is why, you know, I look at the as-needed staff and the temporary staff saying, okay, because we're just going to have to go that way, and then work with council for councils and try to build up mentors who can be sent out to neighborhood councils to provide that additional support. And, you know, I think that the passion of the neighborhood councils and their own skill sets is huge, it's massive. And we can actually build probably a whole army of people to come in and help one another. And I hope in terms of sustainability, that's likely what we will be looking at in the next few years.
I mean, looking at it, I mean, definitely we might have to reach out and get other people to step in and, you know, help you with this issue. The main thing is also we haven't discussed the burning staff that you have right now. The last thing that we want to create is losing more staff because everybody's overworked. The stress that we're creating on those employees is enormous. I mean, just working more hours than they should be working is a critical thing. So that's another thing that we should look into, and I think we need to look at it right away because, again, overworking people is going to create losing more people. So that's another thing that, again, we need to ask those employees, and I mean, that's another critical issue that we need to look at. And I understand, you know, people, we just got to make sure that as a commission, we do as much as the work that we can do to advocate for this department because, again, it's critical. And there's things that you cannot get done. People are expecting you to do because of the lack of staff. So, again, we just need to get something going as of today. I know since we met last time, a lot of us already took initiative. From my point of view is, I talked to our councilman. He wasn't aware of it, and now he is, and he thinks this should be resolved right away. We can't have this. I mean, people depend on the people or asking for things to get done, and we can't do it because, again, the issue that we have in front of us. So my thing is, you know, we're here to, you know, again, as a commission to help you, and we're going to do it. I mean, you got my vote, and if it's going to require us doing and going beyond what we need to do, we can do it. But I just want to kind of thank the rest of the staff that you have and let them know, you know, we're here to support them as well. We just need them to stay in there. But again, we can't have that long because we're going to lose them as well.
Thank you, Commissioner, and I will pass on that support to our staff. You know, how we work, I just tell them honestly, like, do what you can do, and that's all that you can do. And if anyone yells at you for this, or gets frustrated with you on the phone, just send them up to me and I'll talk to them. And what I found when neighborhood councils realized the position that we're in, they've been very supportive and saying, well, I didn't realize it was that bad, or I didn't realize you were using Apple One staff, and that's why they don't understand, you know, how the neighborhood councils work, or why they're just going off a checklist instead of trying to, you know, try to work with us in terms of solutions, because they just don't know how to do it. And so, you know, I find neighborhood councils obviously to be awesome and very supportive in that sense. So I appreciate the commissioners' work as well.
Yes, I hate this new microphones. Moving forward, so now we've laid the foundation for us, you know, trying to do what we can to support. I have a couple things I'd like to point out. One, I would like to know if it's possible for us to get an ONC report back, because I don't mean that official, But I'd like to know if I would put together a list of the reasons why the neighborhood council, in what ways the neighborhood councils are supporting other departments. I think that that can be critical to the conversation. The fact that we're doing community cleanups, which takes work off of sanitation, the fact that we're doing, having DWP present in our meetings creates a situation where they have a place to go to do that. The things I mentioned to Rick earlier, but that was just an example. I'd like to know if we could get a greater list of the services that the neighborhood councils are providing to the city and how that is manifesting itself in reducing workload for some of the other departments or enhancing the work that they do. So that's one thing. And it doesn't have to be you that does it. It can, we can get a couple people to talk about it. The other thing I wanted to mention and I don't know if the other commissioners are aware, but at one time when we were working originally when the department was started and under a different department manager, we actually, I believe, had a lot more employees than this to begin with. So those cutbacks weren't about just cutting back these people. It was already cut back, and now we're cutting back the cutback. And that needs, I think that because Deputy Mayor Rick Cole is not familiar with the system, that this is the kind of information that for him and the CAO, we need to be able to provide as to how many employees we had at one time servicing 60 neighborhood councils and how that number has dropped significantly, and now we have 95 to 97, and however you look at it, because services are being provided to those that are trying to start up now too. So I think that being able to provide those percentages and numbers will be critical in getting the CAO and the rest of the people who can help us work out this issue to be able to help find a solution when they understand the bigger picture, and that we're not just talking these numbers, we're talking the numbers that they didn't even know about because it was before they became into the positions that they are.
It's Commissioner Schaefer and then Commissioner Atkinson. I do remember you creating what she's talking about last year when we did sometimes I create things and I don't know where it is, but
You have some of that information, so yeah, take a look. I'm sure that there's some stuff to add to it at this point.
Yeah.
And I would like to add, because at one time I believe the department had near 60 employees. I'm saying the number is amazing when you talk those cutbacks. If we're down to 20-something and we had 60 and now we're servicing a whole third more neighborhood councils, that's something that they need to be able to put into a proper perspective.
Commissioner Schaefer.
If my history memory is correct, it was over 80 employees. So the department is now down to less than 1/3 of the number of employees that it originally had. I believe, if my figures are correct, about 28% of what it was. I did a quick calculation. If I could get a couple of things in my mind correctly. Number 7 on your list. This is a converted position that is open for hiring now.
Yes, it is. As I said, the delay in actually filling it was because we were trying to switch every NEA over to an MA, and this one would have been the start. Like we would move one over into this, and then we would take the empty, the vacant NEA position, switch that to an MA, and then so on and so forth. It turned out that with personnel department, because of the salary differences, that we were not able to do that. So now we are proceeding to hire it as an MA.
Hire as an NEA?
No, hire as an MA. It would,
As an MA.
right, this position would help fill through.
As to number 12, when Lisette resigns, are you going to be able to look to fill that position? And if so, are you going to try and fill it as an NEA, or are you going to try and convert it to an MA and fill?
We will likely convert it to an MA because the NEA had a class. It has no test and no certified list to it.
As I understand it, the qualifications for NEA really don't match any qualifications for other city departments.
That's correct, and that's been articulated in making some of the NEAs into management analysts. So there is another position called a community program analyst, I believe it's called. It's only in housing, or was in housing, I believe. So it's like an NEA, it's stuck in only another department, so it's not ideal. However, it has more of a range in terms of the community interaction.
So converting these NEAs to an MA position,
That's correct.
both for you and for the employee.
Ultimately, hopefully, the goal again is to try to get it to a point where maybe with the new personnel department, GM, we might be able to actually convert all the NA positions to the NA.
Now, number 16, I didn't quite understand, and I think I did, that you didn't realize that that was an emergency appointment.
That is correct. When we filled it, we actually did interviews and everything that you would do for a normal appointment, and then when we worked with our personnel department, we were not told that it was put in as an emergency appointment. So until about 2 weeks before the emergency appointment expired, we didn't know that it was in that position, and that for basically the whole year, we should have been trying to get an exemption for that.
So what are you going to do with that?
That is one which we have to change into likely this community program position, because the salaries looks like they match up pretty well, and it likely will be in another emergency appointment. So because that class, my understanding is there's no test or whatnot for that either, so we will likely do emergency appointment and then for buy us time another year to figure out how to keep her on.
The resolution authority positions, those were the 3 positions that were approved by the budget committee, city budget committee, but unfunded. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And of those, would you say that the one for the grievances is the most important, at least from your point of view, or am I wrong?
I think that they're all important, but obviously the grievance one, we've worked many years to try to get that grievance policy in place, and since we're so close, it would be a shame that once the ordinance gets passed, that we would have no one to work on it.
And the other 2, as I recall, are people that would work with somebody like Stephen Box to aid in outreach for not only the department, but for other city departments.
That's correct. They would continue the work that we've been doing in that regard, and also assist with our performance metrics. So it's about tracking too.
They're also tracking, okay. Okay, I think that answers my questions. Very good, thank you.
Commissioner Atkinson?
Sorry. Commissioner Atkinson. I know we're discussing kind of our plan of action, whether we do a letter or how we work as a commission to try to influence city council, the mayor, the CAO, however we do that. And I know it's probably not our job to foment unrest among 95 neighborhood councils, but is there a way legally, and I guess I should ask the city attorney that, we somehow, it seems to me, I remember Deputy Mayor Cole, when he came to one of our last board meetings, talking about how important it was for neighborhood councils to be involved in the budget process by supporting their budget advocates, and that the budget advocates can't go and talk about the budget and not have a group of people, that there's power in numbers. So I'm thinking, well, why aren't we using the power in numbers? And I don't know if we can, go back and say to 90, by the way, we're lacking staff and we can't help you, blah, blah, blah. How can we do that legally? And try to get it, we can go see the city council people, but I think it'd be really impressive if 95 neighborhood council went to city council meeting one Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning and sat there and complained, because there is power in numbers. I believe it was a neighborhood council movement that helped keep those DWP prices down a few years ago by just inundating the DWP. And it just seems to me we're not using the resources that we have. It just seems to be that neighborhood council would be where we would go, and I don't know how we share the information, or do we share the information legally, that, oh, by the way, the department is down, we really need 6 or 7 positions filled immediately, and this lack of positions is not helping you. I mean, can we do that, or do we have to, can we share information with the neighborhood council about what's going on?
Deputy City Attorney Lois Phillips. The commission is bringing this to the attention of the 95 wards of the neighborhood councils by having this type of meeting and by having
neighborhood councils here today, so they have to get the information, and they can do that either through the general manager's report. Can we mail out stuff to can I mail out to my board people of South Los Angeles that, we had a commission meeting, a special meeting on the budget, and we have some issues with positions that need to be filled. Am I allowed to contact my neighborhood council board people in South Los Angeles?
We would need to look at and see how you exactly plan to do that, and then let you know what the parameters would be.
We did discuss educating our neighborhood councils about this issue on Thursday. So I think, organizing, I think, is where the line gets crossed, and there has to be the weigh-in of the city attorney, but we can educate them, I'm sure, just letting them know what the issue is. Commissioner Medina. And then I think we should, Jade, is it my understanding you have to leave? Okay, so as soon as you go, we'll have Jade come up.
Commissioner Medina, I just want the commission to know the real issue, though. Besides, once we're able, if we were able to hire people, then we still have, general manager, a window of probably 6 months to train the individual. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes. Once we are given the power to hire individuals, I think earlier you clarified that we have to train, your department has to train this person, and that window is within 6 months. Am I correct?
Well, it depends on what the person is coming in with in terms of their background and what position it is. But typically, in terms of getting them up to speed with how neighborhood councils work and everything, I mean, it takes a good 6 months to a year for folks to really understand neighborhood councils and all the ins and outs.
So within that, let's just listen to that. To 6 to a year for this individual to be fully working. Look at the time that we have, and look at the situation that we're in within, this department. I think that's something that we should be considering, and maybe we have to kind of, as a commission, we have to figure out another strategy. One of them is, the long term is hiring, and then the other thing is training this person. Look at the window that we have, and look within that window things, what can happen. We have issues now, but look at it, so it's going to be a year, and it's almost going to be a year for us to get fully back on track. We have to come up with another strategy beyond hiring people, because this is a big issue. A year, we're talking about a year. So I just wanted you guys to be aware that, a year. What can happen within a year? This department can go down. Have we considered, again, using C4C? I know there are volunteers, if they can help. Have we consider that as well?
Everything is on the table, and Evan and I have already started conversations with C4C members. So, and they are already assigned into some neighborhood councils. We just have to do a big recruitment. At this point, we have less than 10 volunteers, 10 mentors in C4C because we've not been able to do the recruitment. So we're going to be starting that, and that will cut down a lot of time because we're recruiting members of neighborhood councils who already have expertise in that sense.
I just have one more. As far as volunteers, again, using the great talent that we have within the 95 different neighborhood councils out there, their experience and their knowledge to this. Can you just tell me, if you know, what sort of things would they need to come and volunteer?
For councils, they would have to have expertise in just the whole neighborhood council system, the meeting operations. It's many things. It depends on what they're coming into or for as a mentor. We have certain folks are subject matter expertise in planning and land use, so they can come in and be deployed to train up a neighborhood council on that. It really depends on their expertise.
Any regular volunteer coming to the office, if they want to volunteer, what is needed for them? Is on your staff. As far as people within those 95 neighborhood councils wanting to volunteer, as a staff member for you, what would they need?
There are tasks, obviously, in neighbor council, local neighbor councils that they can come in and help us do. Some are checking websites, some are checking, agendas. So there are definitely a multitude of tasks if folks want to come in that capacity. That's different from councils and councils, which would work with neighbor councils as opposed to board of department.
So I'm going to take public comment now, and so I'd like to call up Jay Handel. And as he's coming up, let me just take an opportunity to really commend Jay. I really feel like, I had a chance to talk to him over the weekend, just thinking about all of the hours he spends working on, various things, but on this issue in particular, the budget advocates have really taken a leadership role, and with Jay at the head of that. And what I discovered over the weekend was that they really have a plan for dealing with this issue, and there's an opportunity for us to partner with them, which I didn't really understand when we had our meeting last week. So I'm hoping that he can, again, add another perspective and more information for us so that we can, partner effectively.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you to everybody who's here, including staff who's out in the back. So every day fights this battle along with us. We work it sometimes together. I do want to thank Commissioner Mack and Commissioner Grant, as well as General Manager Gracie Liu, Herb Wesson, and Rick Cole for all of the conversation over the weekend regarding these issues, because we take this very seriously as the budget advocates, and I take it personally, quite frankly, that this department has gone from 63 with a $4.4 million budget back in 2008 to decimated today and continuing to be decimated. Myself and Terrence Gomes had a very lengthy meeting with Council President Herb Wesson last week about this very issue. It was interesting that his perspective, before we even got to speak, was that we had a general manager who had her finger in the dike trying to keep the water in. When I handed him the report that I did for him, the name of my report was Help We're Drowning. And he thought it was actually pretty comical that we were on the same page when it came to overflowing water. Unfortunately, I said to him, my analysis is different than his. My analysis is Gracie's got her finger in the dike, but the wall all around where her finger is had already imploded and the water was pouring in on all sides. And I think that's where staff feels right now. So, interestingly enough, and Mr. Kuzman is here, I was invited out a couple of weeks ago to his area to speak to the stakeholders about what's going on there. And I think I gave a whole different perspective. And the perspective was, technically, yes, it's the department's fault, what's going on out there. But reality is they don't have the staff to do the job, which I will again put on the record for this group. As I said to Council President Wesson, the city's violating the city charter right now, because the city charter mandates that the role of DUN is to support neighborhood councils, and they cannot do that right now. It's just impossible. And it's evidenced by how many people are not doing what they're supposed to do. And I hate to keep picking on all the councils that aren't doing what they're supposed to do, because there's a lot of really good councils out there doing what they are supposed to do. And I hate to hear people out on the street, meeting neighborhood council people, talk about and badmouth the NEAs and staff, when in fact they don't have the opportunity to do a good job because they're too busy swimming uphill. I call it pushing the snowball uphill in hell, and they just don't have a chance of getting that snowball straight up. So in my conversation with Council President Wesson, once we got into the nitty-gritty and the numbers of all of the cases that are open, the phone calls you field, the emails you field every day, between new cases, emails, and phone calls in a 60-day period, there were over 2,400 being fielded by a limited staff of almost none. And I'll say it again, I now call this done the Department of No Employees. That's what the city has done to this department. They have decimated this department. So Councilmember Wesson was shocked. And he was more shocked to learn that you actually had money in the bank to hire people. And he said that really changes the dynamic for him of moving forward and trying to figure out how to get employees. So my understanding from Deputy Mayor Cole yesterday is there's an agreement that's coming to council where the exempt employee positions will be raised by 50. Apparently that's been agreed to by everybody. They're going to come to council with an ordinance change to increase the exempt employees by 50. Councilmember Wesson instructed his deputy to figure out how many of them could be dedicated staff for done, which is a big breakthrough because, quite frankly, you have none. And if you look at the 150 that are out there now, who is exempt from being exempt from the 150, and then who is in there but dedicated, this department, as usual, gets the low end of the totem pole. And the goal here is to bring this department's visibility back to the middle of the radar. Because, a lot of what you heard today with Rick Cole, and from Gracie, is that this department supports so many other departments in what they're doing, which was a mandate, I believe, 1.5 years or 2 years ago, was to get this department to interact and have people doing things. Well, I think what you're seeing is that this department is being called on by other departments now. How can we get to work with you to do this? How can we get to work with you to do that? No different than the budget advocates who are now getting phone calls from department heads that we're not contacting, go, why aren't you contacting us? So in the end, neighborhood councils are the most valuable tool this city has moving forward. And I think people need to recognize that. And while I understand Deputy Mayor Cole saying, well, we're robbing from Peter to pay Paul, we're robbing from Peter to pay Paul, here's the deal. Go back 5 years ago. Peter has been us for 5 years. Paul has never been us. It's time for us to be Paul. So C4Cs are wonderful. Okay? And budget advocates are terrific. And I can say that as chair of both. But I will say this. Without the NEAs and without proper staffing, we're nothing. Because we need to be supporting them. They're not supporting us. We're supporting them. That's really the bottom line. So when budget advocates went 2 years ago and got 2 more positions and $161,000, that's because the voices were heard. Your voice needs to be heard to help us have our voice heard. So when I say that I drafted a motion for you guys last week and I drafted a letter that you guys can mix up, play with, don't mince it. Don't do it. Don't sit there and go, well, let's only ask for 3. Let's only ask for this. No, you know what you need to ask for? You need to ask for 7 positions. That's what you need to ask for. Because getting 3, hoping we'll build C4C, hoping nobody else is going to resign and go somewhere else, and hoping no one else is going to get sick, and no one else is going to get on light duty, we can't live on a hope. Because it doesn't work. We need 7 positions. And you know what? If you ask for 7 and Herb's willing to put 5 in, I'll take the 5. But I'm not willing to sacrifice for 3. Because that's just idiotic. Okay? You guys need to pass a letter today in a resolution supporting neighborhood councils, the system, and the hiring of new employees. In that resolution, you need to add that in the new breakdown of the exempt positions that they're going to be adding, that you want 7 exempt positions put into that 50. It's egregious for them, for managed hiring or any department to come back to this department and say, you have too many exempt positions based on the citywide 1%. The 1% is for the total number of employees we have in the city and shouldn't be broken down by the fact that maybe this department has exceeded 1% of the number of employees in this department means we get 2/3 of a person. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. So while planning is trying to hire 40 or 50, that they were funded for, and of course it's needed. There's a reality. We deal with planning stuff every day. We deal with sanitation stuff every day. We deal with LAPD stuff every day. We deal with fire and emergency preparedness every day. If I sit here and go through every single thing that we deal with throughout this city, I bet you there's barely a department we don't touch somewhere. So what's the answer? Do we bill the departments for our work? Then they all run away because they don't have the money to spend. No, it's time for the city to put the money up where they should be putting the money up, and that's to bring staff back. And again, I go back to the fact that we're a charter mandated department. And by not staffing it correctly, I'm shocked that the unions don't go after the city, quite frankly, for not staffing it correctly and violating the charter. They got a whole lot more teeth than we do, and they're the ones that are sitting there getting ready, everyone getting ready to go out on stress. And if I were their lawyer, I'd tell them to go out on stress, quite frankly, because the department, this is what the city's doing to them. They're putting them in a situation that's an untenable situation. This city, when I listen to Rick Cole talk about, we have to build this and we have to build that, budget advocates recognize something that nobody's talking about out there. This city is $20 to $30 billion in the hole when it comes to infrastructure. Not 3 million, not 10 million, not enough money for this 1.3 million is going to make a difference in. I said this to the general manager, and I'll say it to all of you. And I think I said it to you, Commissioner Matt. In my family business that I ran, it was a $95 million business. I spent more on lunch T&E a year than this department's whole budget. It's a joke. And they look at this department because